and I'm here primarily to share my love of storytelling with all of you. Uh, we can keep this as an interactive open session. Please unmute yourself if you want to ask a question during the session, or if you want to add a comment or a thought. All thoughts and feedback welcome. So please feel free to interrupt me if you want to ask something or say something. I'm very sure that this is a topic in which all of you have something useful to share and contribute. So all your thoughts are very, very welcome. Why is storytelling so important? Is there anybody here in this audience who has not heard a story or who has not told a story? I would be very surprised, right? I would be very, very surprised if somebody here says, no, I have not heard a story, I have not read a story. I think, irrespective of where we are in the world, we all have grown up listening to stories. Especially in the Asian culture, stories are a way of life. We have heard stories from our grandparents, our parents. Our religious beliefs, our philosophies are all distilled into simple stories, be it the Bhagavad Gita in India, or the stories of Rumi in Pakistan, or the Aesop's fable in Arabia. That's how our knowledge and wisdom have been passed on from generations and generations and generations, right? So stories are very, very, very integral. And you know what? As children, we all keep using stories a lot. Even if we were to take permission from our parents to go and play with our friends, or have to give an excuse to our teacher about not doing homework, or just have fun, we've all been using stories very, very, very effectively till we reach our corporate jobs. And then suddenly lives become boring PowerPoint presentations and data and analysis, and we stop telling stories. We stop using the power of stories. So today in this session, what I hope to achieve with all of you is that rekindle the joy of using stories as a method of communication in all of us, and hopefully how we can leverage stories a little bit more in our day-to-day lives. We'll see some examples, and what are some of the common elements that go into making a good story. And you might say, okay, why is storytelling necessary for an IT analyst or an IT project manager or an automotive engineer, or whatever your background might be, or a financial person? Stories are very, very, very important for all of us. The basic construct of a story also allows us to put together various behavioral things that we do in our office, and hopefully we will take a look at all of that today. I'm just going to ask you all a question. Either you can put up your hand on the Zoom screen, or you can open up and say it or chat. Has this ever happened to you that you have done all the hard work in a project or in an area of work, and somebody else has got the credit? If that's the answer, just click on the lift your hand icon on Zoom, or you can just unmute yourself and say so, or you can put it on chat. I'll give it half a minute. This is the scenario. You have done all the hard work in a project, but somebody else has taken credit. Has it happened? Anisha says many times. Okay. What about others? Yeah, Gopal says yes. Nilesh? Okay,
Ashik, many times, innumerable times.
innumerable
People are
times.
here.
Yes. All right. Great. Is there anybody here to whom this has not happened? I would like to hear from such a person. Is there anybody to whom that your credit has not been stolen? I would be very surprised if there is one such person. Have you ever wondered why this happens? We'll take a look. All right. This is quote, beautiful quote from Indira Gandhi, where it says there are two kinds of people: those who do work and those who take the credit. She obviously advises to be in the first group because there's less competition. Let's just take a look at another scenario here. Again, I would like you to say whether this has happened to you. You go and try and say something to your children or to your parents or to your office colleagues or to your boss or to your co-volunteers in PMI or anything else, and they absolutely don't listen to you, or they don't buy your point of view. And then along comes somebody, maybe your spouse, they talk to your children or they talk to your parents, or your co-worker comes and talks to your boss, and immediately the same idea gets accepted. And you're like, I just said the same thing, but they wouldn't accept it when you said it. But the moment somebody else comes and says it, they accept it, and you are like scratching your head about why. What did I do wrong? Has this happened to you? You can chat, you can type. Happens all the time with spouse and children. Colonel Harsha. Okay, used to happen, not now. Vakar, I would like to know how you improved it. That will be a good learning. A lot of people, Anisha Ahmed is banging her head. All right, Anisha. Okay, Zahara. Again, the same question that I'd like to ask. Is there anybody here to whom it has never happened that whatever you say gets accepted, however you say it, because then you should be doing this session. So is there anybody here to whom it has never happened? No. All right. So we have set the context. Two things. You don't get credit for what you do. You're not able to sell your ideas. Why does this happen? How does this happen? Not important. How we can fix it, we will take a look. So today, we're talking about storytelling. So I'm calling it the plot line instead of the agenda. What are we going to cover? We're going to cover a few things. What storytelling is all about. Why is it an essential skill for adults who are in corporate careers and businesses and entrepreneurs? What makes a good story? What are the 3 C's of storytelling? We will try and write a few stories together. And from 3 C's, we will go to something known as the car. And we will wrap up with some tips and techniques, have a break for a prayer, and have a lot of time for question and answers. That's the plan for today. But like all stories, there might be some twists and turns. We do not know. Okay. Shanila, if you can open up the poll, right? If today, let's say there are 4 portions in front of you, each one a different portion, and you can choose only one. What do you need the most? Do you want to be calm? Do you want a bit of magic in your life? Do you want to relax? Or do you want balance? Shanila is just going to open up a poll on Zoom. And if you can select one, you can only select one. What do you need most today in life? Your answers are anonymous, so you can say whatever you want. What do you need the most? Would you like to feel calm? Do you want a little bit of magic in your life? Do you want to relax? Do you want a little bit of balance? Okay, I hope everybody has got a chance to answer. About 40 people in the group. We'll give it another 30 seconds. Yes, the poll is open, Mudassar. Shanila, people should be able to see the poll, right?
Yes.
All right, let's close this poll in 10 seconds. I hope all of you have answered. Shanila, would you mind sharing the results?
Results are shared.
All right. A lot of people today are seeking balance between life and work. And I think it's a very, very critical thing. Some people want to be calm, very few people want to relax. And there are a few of us who still want a little bit of magic in our lives. Doesn't matter what you said, actually. Where do you get all of these things? There's no single magic potion that's going to give you all of it. But the world of stories, both storytelling and story writing, can lend itself to all of these things. You want to find a little bit of balance in your life, immerse yourself into the world of story writing and storytelling. Try and write your own story. Try to break the monotony of work and try and write your own story and see how that works. Moving on. What is storytelling, right? There is so much talk about storytelling. Why is storytelling and what is storytelling? I'm just going to open it up to the audience here. Would you want to share with me what you think storytelling is all about? Anyone?
Kaushik, this is Rohit. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Rohit Anand. I worked with you in DXE in my earlier roles. Anyway, so I recall when I talk about, I hear about storytelling is that you take things from your day-to-day work life and create a story around these. So for me, a story is like how I wake up, how I do things after that. When I look towards the window and see outside the trees, the birds sitting on it. That's how you wave the stories, and so for me, storytelling is that. Uh, how do I build up something around it, something interesting, so that people wait for the next sentence associated with that picture which I'm trying to show them.
Thank you, Rohit. Thank you. Uh, Part of day-to-day life, storytelling is a very integral part of day-to-day life. Would anybody else like to take a stab at this?
Kaushik, this is Deepa here. For
Hi,
me,
Deep.
the storytelling is about selling your idea, selling your message in a way that people can remember it and people can reproduce it.
Oh, beautiful. I love that, Deepa. I love what you said, and I'm going to take one word out of what you said, which is remember. Right? You use that twice.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
people remember what you said. Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Anybody else would like to say add to
Me,
that?
Kaushik,
Okay, two
go ahead,
people.
Zara. Go ahead, go
No,
ahead.
no, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Uh,
I have
th-
put something in
thank you,
the chat.
Zara. Thank you, Zara. Kaushik, hi, Samshir with you. Uh, Storytelling is, according to me, when I want to tell a story to somebody, that means I have some picture back of my mind. How effectively I convey that picture to other person, my target audience, with minimum disturbance, so that they are at the same wavelength. What I have got at the back of my head, they are exactly, if not the same, almost nearer to that position. That is, according to me, is an effective storytelling. Thank you.
Beautiful, sir. Thank you. Zahara, you want to go next?
Sure. I was just saying that for me personally, storytelling has always been a way of making sense of life, whatever was happening, and the emotions and that part of it, as well as a way of connecting with others. From this is how it is for me. It has always been a way of connecting with another human being.
Beautiful. I'm going to take a part of that.
Hi, Kaushik.
Hi, Fahad.
How are you? A great topic. I just want to say one thing. Storytelling basically depends on number one, at what age bracket you are, and what is the objective, or if you're storytelling, right?
Right.
This matters. For example, if you're talking to your parents, storytelling will be totally different. If you're talking to your client, it will be totally different. And if you're talking to somebody junior than you and trying to convince them on certain things, storytelling would have a different impact.
Absolutely. Brilliant, Fahad. And I love that you touched the point about how important it is to decide who you're telling the story to, right? Obviously, when I do this session with all of you who are all peers and senior, I will do it in a different way. And I will do it in a different way if I'm going to do it with a bunch of school students. Excellent. Now, let us put all of these two things together, right? There are a few words that stand out. What Deepa said about memorable. All of us, I'm very sure, if I ask you to take a minute, you will be able to remember incidents from your school life, incidents from when you were 5 or 6 or 7, the stories that your grandparents or your parents told you, the memorable incidents and that is how the age-old wisdom of all our cultures have been passed down to us. They have been passed down to us in the form of stories. So one of the most important aspects of stories and storytelling is it has to be memorable. What it leaves is an emotional imprint, and I think that was what Zahara also mentioned. Storytelling is associated with emotions. It is the emotional connect. There are certain stories that automatically trigger certain memories in all of us. And they are a beautiful way to convey your message. And I think that was what Shamser Bhai was trying to make a point. He was saying that I have to connect with the other person and convey my communication methodologies. So from a modern corporate mindset, storytelling is a communication medium. We use emails, we use chats, we use written communication, we use contracts, we use so many other mediums, but storytelling is also a very, very, very powerful communication medium. I'm going to add to what Fahad said, right? We have to decide how well we use this medium, just like we decide how we use other mediums with other people. Storytelling is also a medium that we will choose our audience. But there are a couple of important points that I would like to leave with about storytelling. Number one, storytelling is an interactive art. Like most other forms of communication, it is also a two-way process. It is not a single person telling others what to do or what he wants to say. It is a two-way process. And it encourages not only the listener's participation, but also encourages the listener's imagination. You want to trigger, when you tell a story, you want to trigger certain thoughts, certain ideas, and hope that they are memorable so that that conversation stays on and connects the emotion of the person. So I will just summarize here. Storytelling is an interactive art. It is a two-way process or a many-way process. It not only hopes to share ideas and data, but also hopes to trigger the other person's imagination and ideas, and which is why it is an extraordinarily powerful medium. This is a beautiful quote. I'll pause here for 10 seconds for you to read this. This is from Joe Lazukas in his book, The Storytelling Edge. And for all of us who live with PowerPoints and Excel sheets, I think this is a very, very powerful quote. I'm sure many of you are book readers. Do try that book, The Storytelling Edge. Now, I'm going to ask you a question again. Has your father ever told you a story? Anyone? We always hear about grandmothers telling stories, right? So has your father ever told you a story? Yes, many. All right. Okay. The next question. Why did your father tell you a story? Rabia says when we were there, when there was no electricity, that was Zahara. Okay. To make you understand the world, Rabia, very good. Anything else? Why did your father really tell you a story? To teach lessons, to learn something from it, to make us understand things. All right. Those of you, your fathers in the room or mothers, why do you tell your children stories? Think about the real answer. To connect with emotional level, to teach skills. It was a regular session before going to bed, says Anand Kumar. So Anand, you're on the right track. To create memories, no, go back to the bed a little bit. The real reason your father, your mother, or your grandparents told you stories was to either get you to keep quiet for some time or get you to go to sleep on time. I will tell you a story and then you can go to bed. I will tell you a story if you stay quiet for 5 minutes. The primary purpose a father wanted to tell you a story was to get you to keep quiet and go to bed. But he would never say that. He would say, let me tell you a fairy tale. Let me tell you a story about what happened in my life. Let me tell you a moral story. Let us all have some family time together. By making it sound that it was an activity that you all would like, the father achieves two purposes. Not only he has done all of those things that you all put in the chat to create memories, to have an experience, to create an emotional bond, to share lessons, but at the same time, he wanted you to go to sleep on that day on time. This is the art of storytelling. This is the trick that we all need to use. We have a purpose to tell the story, but we have to make it sound like it is coming from the listener's perspective. We want to do it for the sake of the listener. Yes, do we have an inside track or do we have a hidden agenda with it? Absolutely. But we always tell stories from the perspective of the listener so that the listener wants to do what you want him or her to do. It's not for nefarious purposes. Obviously, a father wanting a child to sleep is very day to day, but that is the power of the story, right? You can use the story and set it to whichever context that you want, so that every stakeholder who listens, Fahad mentioned that you change your story based on who listens to, you can change your story a little bit, right? Michael Frenet says that's why people fall asleep when I speak. Not bad, Michael. I think you should put it to good use. Right. And somebody asked for the name of the book. The entire presentation will be shared later by Shanila, and there will be a recording. So you will get that too. So yes, every story you tell, you start by understanding why you want to tell the story. Your father told you a story, or your grandmother told you a story, so that they can get some quiet time when you're sleeping. Does it have so many other benefits? Yes, absolutely. It creates memories, it creates emotions, it creates bonds, but your outcomes are achieved. And that is the aspect of storytelling that we're going to look today. All right. I want everybody to answer this question, all 45 of you, right? Quick one-word answer. 80% of time spent by leaders is spent in what? You can type, you can say. All right, meetings, directing, communication. All right. Trying to explain. All right, Gopal, that comes from experience, I guess. Inspiration. Communication. I've got about 10, 11 answers out of 40. Trying to convince, ideally inspiring, but at least directing. Manipulating, okay. Direction. Communication. Excellent. Face-to-face interactions plus conference calls. Inspire, communicate, develop. I'm still looking for 2 words which kind of summarizes all of this. Analyze, strategize, solve problems, one-to-one meetings. Think a slightly higher level. What is it that leaders are trying to do? Motivate. Sudhir says influence. All right, Sudhir, you get a free copy of my book. Since you're a co-author, you already have it. Convince, to lead. All right. The answer has come from Sudhir actually, right? 80% of the time is spent by leaders in trying to influence or persuade other people to see things the way they want it to be seen. There's a very interesting webinar that I attended which said the CEO, the moment you get into the C-suite of a company, you no longer have direct authority over anybody, not even your direct reports. 80% of your communication, 90% of the roles that you involved, the people that you work with are either your peers, your customers, or people who have more control over your stocks and shares than you do. So it is very rarely that a CEO can go around giving direct commands to anybody. He can't go and shout at his customer. He can't go and shout at the end user public. So CEOs and the C-suite of companies today have to spend most of their time in persuading or influencing people. And what is the best way to influence people? The best way to influence people is through storytelling. Do take time out to read a HBR article on why storytelling is an important aspect of every leader's power skills or soft skills. Unfortunately, today we don't use it. Most leaders have forgotten the idea of using storytelling as an effective way of communication. All right. I'm going to pause here for a prayer break for 10 minutes. Shanila, is it okay if people who are not going to the prayer stay on in this line and we continue discussing any questions or any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. If we can, yeah.
Right,
So we're going to resume the session after 10 minutes of prayer break.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So I just want to add one thing, Kaushik, you have excellent knowledge so far. If you remember our childhood,
Coming slides. All right. Okay. I'm going to start sharing my screen again.
Sure.
Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet.
Excuse me for a second. All right. So what we just stopped with, just before we went for a break, was that 80% of the time spent by leaders is spent in trying to influence people or persuade people towards achieving a common objective. Now, if I was just to extrapolate this to the project management world, everybody here knows that 80% of the time project managers spent in communication. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So, what is a story, right? As you all know, and there is tremendous amount of science that is published about the left brain and the right brain, how the left brain is logical, systematic, objective, analytical, verbal, reactional, this we know, and how some of us are left brain people and how some of us are right brain people. And then there's also a whole concept of the right brain where they're creative, they're random, they are emotional, they have big pictures, they have dreams, imaginative. But what is not often considered is that most people, while they might favor one part of the brain over the other, we all actually use both parts of our brain. So it's not that if I'm a left brain person, I'm always going to be logical, or if I'm a right brain person, I don't understand math. In this scenario, how do we persuade people? We persuade or influence people using the idea of stories. And what do these stories contain? If we saw the earlier slide about what stories are made up of, there are two ways to persuade people, right? And we had a brief discussion during the break about how we can persuade people with statistics and data and numbers and PowerPoint presentation. So the challenge with that objective approach is that the other side of the coin, the people whom we are trying to influence, also come with their own set of statistics and numbers and their own experts, right? Think of any court case, both sides of the argument, there are 20 experts. If somebody says cigarette smoking is injurious to health, there are 20 global experts saying yes, and there are 20 global experts saying no, cigarette smoking has no ill effects at all. And both of them will show tons and tons of research. So in that case, how do we convince people, right? We use a combination of both idea and emotion. The idea will take root in terms of it has the data points, it has the history, it has the logical actioning, and the emotion tugs at the big picture, the emotion, the imagination of the person. And how do you bring idea plus emotion together? You bring idea plus emotion together in a story. So easy to remember formula for today is idea plus emotion is equal to influence, or idea plus emotion is equal to persuasion, right? So what is a story, and why do we need to persuade people? What are the elements that go into making a story? So before we go into what I call as the 3 C's of storytelling, and it's not my idea, it's globally published. Typically, all the stories that we know, any movie that we see, any storybook that we read, the story has a flow to it. You take our own lives, there is a particular balance to it, there's a particular ebb and flow to it, and life goes on, right? What sometimes is called as the daily drudgery or the daily monotony, but nothing happens. We get up, we go to work, we log in from home nowadays, what we call as the new normal, sleep, eat, repeat, right? Get up, work, eat, sleep, repeat, and that's the daily story for most of us. And then something happens which upsets the status quo. In a movie, sometimes it's called the inciting incident. What incites the change in the daily? The hero and the heroine are happy, their relatives are happy, they are singing songs. If it's an Indian movie, they are singing songs around trees with hundreds of people. And suddenly the villain comes and kidnaps the hero's sister. That changes the story. There is a inciting incident. Or somebody comes and steals, or somebody comes and murders somebody. There's an inciting incident. And then from then on, the hero or the heroine tries to restore that balance, tries to go back to that monotony of the daily life, tries to restore the status quo. What in the Harvard Business Review case study has been called very nicely as the daily conflict between subjective expression and objective reality, right? We all desperately try to achieve that status quo back again because it's got upset. Life exists well, all physical states in the nature of the universe is that they try to go back to a state of equilibrium. Storytelling is exactly this. There is a state of equilibrium, it gets upset because of something, and then we try to put it back to that original balance. So, what are these three C's? Number one is the context. What is the context in which our story happens? What, where it happens? There was once upon a long time ago, there was a very beautiful fortress in the city of Karachi. You know, you set up your own story, you set up the context. There was a very rich prince, and he liked a girl who was a very poor girl who lived opposite his palace. You know, some story, the context. You are bringing in the characters, you are bringing in where it has happened, the time, the situation. You are describing the daily normal. That is your context. The second step is the conflict. The conflict need not be necessarily a fight between two people. It's not a conflict in the meaning of the word conflict or a fight or a war. A conflict is anything that upsets the natural flow of things, anything that changes the course of the story that's meandering along like a river. And finally, the third C is the conclusion. How does it all conclude and how does it bring back together, right? Every story that you take in the world has these three elements. Of course, it has got other elements, but these three are the key elements: the context, the conflict, and the conclusion, right? What was your day-to-day normal? What was your daily balance? What upset the status quo, and how did you try to restore the balance, or how did you try to restore the normal? The fight the protagonist or the hero has against the expectation versus reality. And now, if you think of all our own lives, we do this day in and day out. This is what happens to all of us. Now, let's take some examples and see how this works. So, all it needs for us to write a good story is 3 lines: one line of context, one line of a conflict, one line of a conclusion. Let's take an example and let's see. This is a story that everybody knows, right? Is there anybody here who does not know the story of the rabbit and the tortoise? What is the context? They were in a jungle, they had a fire, they were having a conversation, and they said, let's have a race. They decided to have a race. What was the conflict? What upset the balance? On a normal day, 99 out of 100 times, the rabbit should win the race easily. But this rabbit, and thanks to it, a million stories later, a million retelling later, the lazy rabbit took some rest. That upset the status quo. And the tortoise won the race. That was the conclusion. And then from then on, we have been reading a moral which says slow and steady wins the race. Now, we have all heard of multiple iterations of the story, multiple new ways of telling. But at the root of it, there is a context, there is a conflict, there's a conclusion. Now, let's try and play around with it a little bit and see what is our context, and let's try and write our own story. I'm giving you the context. Shanila, the president of PMI Karachi chapter, Zahara also in Karachi, they decide to meet, and in times of not Corona, they tried to meet, and they are good friends, and they're chatting happily and walking down the road. That is the context. What is the conflict? They spot a 5,000 Pakistani rupee note lying on the pavement in front of them, and they both spot it at the same time, and they look at each other. Now, I will stop talking, and I want you all to conclude the story. I want you all to type out the third line of this story, and you can type it out in the chat. Zahara already knows the ending when we were doing the prep session, but I also did some research. Zahara told me that 5,000 rupee note is the highest denomination note to in Pakistan. Okay. Now you're all writing boring stories like they gave it to charity and donate. Now try to make it more interesting. Decide to go and party. Okay. Bird flew away and took away the son. They shared the money and do party together. Okay, split it in half and went to the spa. Fahad knows the woman this a little better. All right. They found it was fake currency. They found it fake. Excellent. Now let's just pause it here for a second. Same story. Now, as you all said, there are so many different ways to finish the story. Correct? Now let's try and link some emotion to it. I want you to finish this story in a sad way, using a tragedy. Wakar Hussain says they were going to buy books from nearby store, knowing Zahara, that's probably right, and probably she would end up spending another 50,000 of her own money. Okay, Gopal got it right. He says while picking up the note, they met with an accident. So that's one way of ending it in a tragedy. Any other way to end it in a tragedy? Let's try various emotions. So any other way to end it in a tragedy? They were arguing and quarreling with both. Okay. Michael, friend, that is a very dangerous ending. I'm not going to read it out. Okay, let's pause. Try and finish it in a humorous manner. It was Zahara's note, okay. They didn't realize that she had dropped it. That's nice. It was to the ground and they could not peel it off. They picked it up simultaneously and tore it into half. Excellent. It was a fake one with Eid Mubarak on it. I heard that that is very common. I heard that there are a lot of these Eid Mubarak notes. Somebody was doing a prank. Before they could, somebody else picked it. Very nice. All right. Okay. Now, try to end it with a twist. So we have done tragedy, we have done comedy. Let's now try and give it a twist that people cannot think of. Okay, Anand says police was watching from a distance. Okay, not for 5,000 rupees, Anand. Some other twist. Try and end it with a twist. It was not a note, it was a painted picture. Okay, robbers came and did what? It was made of rubber and bounced like a bad check. It is mine. It was a dream. Okay, now Shahida is adding a twist. Okay, my wife is listening to me here and he says it was part of a reality TV show, right? Okay. Cause they were spirits. Okay, Zahara. They got caught on candid camera, right? Okay, beautiful. Let's just pause it here. The note was narrating the story. All right. So what I just wanted to, okay, notes were infected with coronavirus. All right. Slightly Macbeth ending, but okay. All right, let's just pause it here for a minute. So we all saw that we could take 2 lines and there are 44 out of 44 people, there are some 80 different stories coming out. And that is what happens for us as well. And the story will change every time we tell it to somebody else. So we just saw that the same story, we could end it in multiple different ways. But all we need are these 3 elements: the context, the conflict, and the conclusion. Let's just take one more example of this. The beauty of this model is that you can write the context, conflict, and conclusion in any different way that you want. It need not be chronological. You can have a flashback, you can have a dream, you can go to the future, you can start with the conclusion, you can go into the context, come to the conflict, you can put it in any order. Let's just take an example. This is my response, by the way, right? His response was simple. For a webinar, what does it matter if it's Karachi or Kabul? This is the conclusion of a story. He was asked why he was doing a session for Karachi chapter. Some people seem upset. That was the conflict. What was the context? It all started when the Karachi chapter invited Kaushik to do a webinar. And by the way, this is a true life story. It happened 2 days ago. Many people ask me why I'm doing a session for Karachi chapter. My answer was simple. It's a webinar. How does it matter if it is Karachi or Kabul? Now, I can take these 3 sentences and put it in any order. It will still mean the same. The story will not change. I can put the context first. I can go into the conclusion. I can go to the conflict. I can start with the conflict, go into the context, and go into the conclusion. So what's the important learning, or what's the important takeaway from this entire thing is these 3 C's, context, conflict, and conclusion, can be put in any order that we like, right? Now, what I want you to do, we're going to give us each about 2-3 minutes. I want you to write your own story. Maybe it's a story about your work, maybe it's a work problem that you're facing, or maybe it's just a beautiful story that you want to write. Maybe it's funny, maybe it's witty. But what I want you to do is to set the context, define your conflict, and visualize the conclusion. Maybe you have a problem that you want to go and talk to your boss about. You can use this as an example to create your own story now. Again, like I said, the context, the conflict, and the conclusion can be in any order. I'll take a 2-minute break. I'll stop sharing the screen. Each one of you, maybe if you have a paper and a pen, write it down or type it in your notepad. And once maybe somebody is ready, they can read out what they have written. It could be any story, but what I want is a conflict, a context, and a conclusion. It can be in any order. And while we're doing that, if anybody has questions, go for it. Okay, I just see a question on this one from Seema. She says, can you explain conflict again, please? Seema, conflict is anything that causes a change in the status quo, right? Something that allows the story to go away from the broken normal into a different direction. It could be an actual conflict. It could be an actual fight. So let's say if I take a project management example, there is a sudden attrition or something, and people your critical resource quit, and it changes your entire project plan. Or you are going to do a training program. Seema, I know you're a facilitator yourself. You're going to go to do a training program, and when you reach your venue, you find that maybe the projector is not working, or all your participants have gone to a different venue and you have reached a different venue. So anything that changes the status quo is a conflict. It need not be an actual status quo. It need not be an actual fight. I hope that answers your question. Gopal, yes, most job interviews are storytelling. That's what I'm going to cover in the next slide in a model for behavioral answers. Okay, Anand, how can you storytelling using? I have personally not done that, Anand, because I've not been in a sales role, but I have used storytelling with this to influence my customers, right? Especially when it comes to the question of understanding milestones for payments. Customers always have a different interpretation to what we have. Without going into the specifics of the customer, one of the customers had to pay us a 10% milestone payment of $100 million deal when we set up the data center. And that was the first step in a large greenfield project. And there was a lot of back and forth about how the customer was not going to pay for it and so on. And they were going into nitty-gritties about X device and Y device and so on. And most of the conversation was around individual components and servers and network devices whether a particular device was there rather than looking at what has been achieved overall. So between me and my architect, we went and presented a picture of, instead of saying number of servers present versus number of devices present, we went and said how much progress has been made in terms of how we could progress to the next stage of application building. So we changed the context from counting devices to showing the business value for the customer. We walked them through our readiness and the customer accepted it. While they did not pay 10% completely, they did pay about 7.5%, which still made a big difference for our cash flow at that time. Some say, sir, a botched up everything can create a hurdle, right? Not only storytelling. If you botch something up, it is going to create a hurdle. That's a new story. Okay, I think enough time has passed. So would anybody like to volunteer the story that you have read? I need you to read out 3 components: the context, the conflict, and the conclusion. Shanila, I thought people said they have come in from multiple different places. Is there anybody outside of both India and Pakistan? Any nice, fancy, faraway place?
Yes, we do. And if people can raise their hand in the participant window, so then we can unmute them. Otherwise, it's not going to. We're going to be lots of people talking at the same time.
Sure.
So those who want to share, can you just raise your hand in the participant window, please? Thank you.
Okay, Anand Kumar has raised his hand.
Kaushik, I think my name is somehow, I don't know, it's spelled incorrectly. My name is Rohit Anand.
Okay,
Hope you
all right,
recall
Rohit.
me.
Yeah, I know Rohit. Yeah, I know you, Rohit. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just seeing the screen.
Yeah, I'm connecting here from Singapore.
Okay, go for it, Rohit. You should have done pre-sales, so you should tell me the stories.
Yeah, so I could relate more of these things in the art of winning deals, where we used to tell a story. I recall a long time back, around 4 or 5 years back, there was a Pfizer deal which we were working on, and I think Meg was the CEO at that time of HP. I was working to create those stories, and we didn't create anything. There was no slides, there was nothing. We just created a video in which Meg said something, and we tried to roll those stories similar to how can we help a company which eventually is helping to eradicate certain diseases. So our story was just about a child, that a child has certain issues, and how HP at that time is helping Pfizer to elevate those diseases and give some respite to the
end patient
at large. So in fact that's how that idea of art of winning deals started, and that was formalized. There were people coming from US and going to different regions about how you win deals, how you create those stories. I haven't done many of such things, but in my current role, I am trying to do more and more such things.
Excellent. So Rohit, what I would recommend is, why don't the story that you said contained all 3 aspects of what we talked about, but maybe as an exercise for yourself, you should just break this down into what was the context, what was the conflict, and how did it conclude? Maybe you can try that as a homework. I see that Asghar Syed has raised his hand. What would you like to share, Syed?
Yes, the context is that
Sir, you're not very clear. Can you come closer to the mic?
Yes, the context is a precaution against the COVID or following the SOP. Right? This is the current issue in our organization. So this is the context. This was the context in this report. Conflict was that we have stopped people sitting face to face in the canteen area while dining. The manager level.
Sorry, sir, we are not able to hear you very clearly. So let me just pause you here while you check your connection. We'll come back to you in a minute. Nilesh, you have also raised your hand. Would you like to share what you're saying?
Clear now?
Sir, it's still a little low on your volume. You might want to just check your connection. I'll just come back to you in a minute, sir.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Nilesh, would you like to share something?
Hi, Kaushik. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I have already shared in the chat window for everyone's benefit. Yeah, the context I have just thought with respect to the real scenario. The new project supposed to start in the start of this year. That was given everything was well started kickoff. The conflict is because of this pandemic. A lot of changes has to be made. Forcefully, we have to work from home from the March onwards. So that was because of this pandemic impact. The conclusion is the project cost reduced to less than half, and the people who are supposed to work on it laid off. So that's the conclusion. Yeah.
So basically, you're writing tragedies. I like the way you've broken it down into context, conflict, and conclusion. But what I would like you to focus on in the future is how you can take this conflict and context and convert it into a conclusion that you would like.
Okay.
Right. That is the whole purpose of this story, right? How do we use this to influence your decisions that would suit you? Let's try and see whether Syed, your line is better now. You want to try again?
Thank you, Kaushik.
Thanks, Nilesh. Syed, bye. Okay.
Is that okay now?
Yeah, it's better. Yes.
Okay. It's a very small incident or issue or things. The context is that the precaution against COVID as per SOP, and the conflict is that one person did not follow the instruction and taken a seat of face-to-face sitting while in the dining area where it was not supposed to be. Then the conclusion is that he was stopped. He was told not to do it, but he didn't do it, and he didn't follow it. And he said, "I'm not. I'm following, and I'm at a distance," and things like that. The incident went further that he started again the next morning for not following another section of shaking hands. Then finally, I had to report to the higher management, and then he was all right after 2 days, and things will settle down.
Perfect. And so you might want to turn it around to say and use this as an example of a story that you can tell others so that they start following the SOP a little better.
Yes.
Right. This could be the story of, did you know what happened to him? He didn't follow the rules. He did this, and therefore we laid him off.
Okay.
That's how you could turn the story to benefit you, to create more awareness about the SOP with your other team members.
Yeah, okay, that was they have to be done at the broader level. Though it was done by those people sitting over there, but as you said, it could have been done at maybe the crowd level or the team level.
Okay,
thank
Beautiful. You. So let's just go back to what we started with, right? Those two problems that all of us have: not getting credit and not being able to sell our ideas. I'm going to show you a sample email. Let's take a minute to read this and tell me what does this story tell, or what story does this entire email tell? And let's also honestly accept that we have sent mails like this. So all the senior project leaders in the crowd, and I know many of them are here, have you received mails like this from your project teams? Zahara, आपको तो मिला होगा ना ऐसे updates?
Kaushik, as we speak, we are working on a project without going into too much detail about the project, and 30-page and 40-page. Actually, I received the recent presentation that I received was around 46 slides deck, which we had to
prepare and put all the data within 24 hours. So yes, and then most of the people didn't even read that template. So, and this happened like few days ago.
Okay. Anybody else here who has got a similar mail, or more importantly, sent a similar mail as project managers?
Yeah, we receive not necessarily project managers. Even in finance, we used to get the so-called executive summary, which doesn't tie to the slides, and the slides are mere copy paste of the Excel, whatever is embedded.
Beautiful, Gopal. All right. So tell me, in this particular story, if you are the person sending this story, what does it tell you? It tells me that I'm unorganized. It tells me that I have just collected data for the sake of data. And with this particular information, I cannot influence anybody to do anything. First of all, I cannot even influence people to read this. It is filled with a lot of irrelevant data. There is no thought process that has gone into this. And more often than not, like Zahara said and Gulam says on the chat, we spend days and days of time putting together this kind of nonsense, which nobody reads. What are all the things that we can correct? Now, let us appreciate what we have learned so far about storytelling, about the context, the and now let's take one scenario. This could actually be a PowerPoint slide with 40 slides with actual data about your project. And you might have actually completed a brilliant project on time. But if you send this report, you are not going to get any credit. You know who is going to get the credit? The credit is going to go to that guy who is one of those 500 people that you've copied on this mail. He's going to forward this only to the CEO and say, sir, very critical project has been completed for the company. Based on this, there is a $22 million saving, and this project has been finished on time, ahead of time by 1 month. And everybody in the leadership team is going to send him messages saying, congratulations, job well done. And you are thinking why they have not read my mail. Now, here is one of the issues. I'll take the other example as to why nobody listens to you. You have just mentioned here that one critical resource was supposed to join, did not join because he got some job, he went somewhere else. Information that is completely irrelevant. There is no story there. There is no conflict. There's no context, nothing. You know who will get the hiring approval? The person who sends a mail saying, one critical resource did not join. This project is delayed by 30 days. We are paying a penalty of $2 million for every month of delay. Therefore, I need to hire a resource. That person is telling the story. And obviously your leadership is going to say, oh yeah, I understand why this role is critical. You have to understand. And you are going to be like, I sent the same mail last 5 weeks and nobody listened to me. This obviously is an extremely exaggerated example, but not so exaggerated that it doesn't happen to us every week of our life, even now. Use this as an example of how not to construct an email or how not to construct a story, how not to persuade people. This is an example that I put together for that reason. So what do we need to remember? We need to remember that when we tell the story, the most important character is the guy who's telling the story or the girl who's telling the story. The storyteller is the most important character in the story because we create all the characters, we create the context. We will now use these storytelling models, and Gopal did mention that most of your interview questions are based on storytelling. It is correct. I would expand that thought. Today, all conversation that are behavioral oriented, whether it is an interview or whether it's an internal report or whether it is a presentation that you make to the company, they all are of a behavioral in nature, and they all use what is known as the CAR methodology, CAR, right? And that is the best way to convince people to see your viewpoint. What is the CAR methodology? We will take a look, and you're going to be like, why is the CAR methodology important in storytelling? And you will realize soon. The first step of the CAR methodology is what? It's an easy way to remember. What are you talking about? Set the context. who, when, what, once upon a time, somebody lived, somebody did, somebody died, this happened, that happened. You're setting the context. And you go and tell all of this to your boss, and what's your boss going to say? So what? So what if somebody died? What is the next step? Then you set the conflict, you set the issue around it. You are going to say, what is the impact analysis? 3 people quit and therefore my project is delayed. I need to hire 2 more people in a hurry. I might have to go for contract labor. You give your examples. And then your boss says, what the hell do you want me to do about it? Now what? You told me what? So what? Now what? So this is an easy way to remember how you can influence people. But what is all this? It's nothing but your context, which is your what, your action that you want to do based on the context, and your results that you're hoping to get based on the action that you want to take. This is called as the CAR model. And if you ever attend an interview for a job and they say, can you give an example when? Can you tell me a scenario when you did this? Or when somebody asked me a question saying, have you used this example? Have you used this in a real life scenario? This is the model that you're going to use to answer the question. Next time you have to make a PowerPoint presentation, next time you have to go and present in front of 20 people, if you can just put 3 slides which says what, so what, and now what, trust me that your job is done. Of course, your context will have data in it, but this presentation model will not fail. Now, it's very easy. All of you can see that this model is nothing but the 3 C's model, which is context, conflict, and conclusion. They call it the CAR model. So you can call it the CAR model, you can call it the 3 C models, but what you're basically answering are the 3 questions. What, so what, now what? Move on, answer your stories. This is called the CAR model. It's easy to remember. You can also remember it as a 3 C's model. With that, I'll pause here. I have some takeaways, but before I go into takeaways, we have about a few minutes left to answer any questions on this. I hope you found it useful, but if you have any questions, we can take it now. Otherwise, I'll summarize with a few takeaways that we have from the session. I'll stop sharing for a minute. So if people want to ask questions. We have about 10 minutes to wrap up.
So those who have questions, if you can raise your hand, so now we can take it one by one in order to avoid overlapping. We'll go towards Rohit Anand Kumar. So Milton, yep. You can unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can.
Yes, Milton.
Hey, all right. Good evening, Kaushik, and thanks for setting this up, both of you. I'm calling from Miami, just believe it or not, Miami in the US.
Good morning, Milton.
And yeah, and I really enjoyed your presentation. I wanted to share my a quick story and kind of follow the C's and what you said. And it's a story of me going back about 28 years ago, where I got my pilot's license. And once you get your pilot's license, you have it pretty much for life. What you need to do is pretty much have 3 takeoffs and landings every 90 days, and you stay current. But for 28 years, I didn't do that. And your license doesn't expire, but you need to do that to stay current. So my currency wasn't up to date. So I've been wanting to get back into it for years, and no luck. And COVID happens, right? There's your conflict. COVID happens, and we get furloughed from work, and now I have all this time on my hands. So what I did is I started studying and getting back into, figuring out how to get my currency back and to be current with flying. And so I studied and got a flight instructor and got my currency back. But then I didn't stop there. I continued and got my drone pilot's license as well as my instructor license. And now I am, the story ends where I am very happy having that done. and in a time of this that's happening today, right? So that's the story I want to share.
Nice to hear that story. So you're saying that there's some positives coming out of the lockdown and the pandemic.
Exactly.
So I hope you get to take a flight out over the Miami beach. And
yeah, definitely. I'll share the video with you guys once that happens.
Beautiful. You should do a session about it, about how you
yes,
remember
I'm thinking
flying
about
after
it.
28 hours. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
28
Shanila,
years. Yeah.
It's like cycling, I guess, then. You don't never forget it.
Exactly.
I thought we had one more question, Shanila. All right. All right. If there are no more questions, I'll just quickly summarize. Also conscious that it's late.
Yeah, we have one in the chat window. When you have
Multiple target audience, and how to build a story with every one of them in one go. So you don't need to build a same story. You cannot sell the same story to everybody. Obviously, you have to alter the context a little bit. How you tell the story to your leaders will be different from how you tell the story to your team. So, for example, you will focus a little bit more on the technical aspects when you talk to your team, and you'll probably focus on the big picture and the business value when you talk to leaders. You might focus more on contracting and others when you talk to your vendors. But what's important is that your facts and your data is consistent. You're not going to change the big picture for everybody. You may just change the conflict that each person faces. So in the email that I sent, the engineering team might be very interested to know why the delays were, whereas the business might be more interested to know what is the cost of the delays. And the people who went on leave, they're only bothered about how long they can be on leave. So you need to change the way you structure the story, the way you present the conflict might change, but the overall context remains the same. And the conclusion remains the same because that's the conclusion that you're trying to arrive at. Right. And hopefully that answers your question. Right. Also, I'm covering that as a part of some of the takeaways. Things to remember in this, influence or persuasion is ideas plus emotion. That's how I summarize storytelling. It is where you bring ideas and emotion together to achieve an influencing position. The most important thing to remember, it's your story, but you're going to present it in their perspective. So think about the father who tells a story to the child so that the child goes to sleep, but the child is so happy that the father spent time, they're creating memories, there's a beautiful story, and those are all great positives. It's a win-win situation, but it is your story. And when you tell the story, you change the conclusion the way you want it. You tell the child the morals that you want to share with it. It might be the rabbit and the tortoise story, but you can finish it in so many different ways. It might be the Zahara and the Shanila story. So one day it could be a moral lesson about how if you find something on the road, you have to go and give it back to charity or try and find the right person. On the other day, it could be a funny story about how a gust of wind came and blew it away. It is your story, but you're going to put it from their perspective. The fourth C in this entire thing is consistency, right? Just because you're telling the story in different ways to different people does not mean that one time the rabbit wins, the one time the tortoise wins, and some other time the lion comes and eats both of them. You have to be consistent with how you present your facts. This is the thin line between storytelling and fudging data. Then there is no difference between storytelling and statistics. What Sudhir asked, you adapt the way you tell your stories to the audience that you're telling the stories. You may want to present a different picture to the leadership. You might want to present a different picture to different teams that you're working with. The same news about working from home or redundancies or anything changing, even something as day-to-day as you quitting one job and moving to another job. The way you tell the story to your friends will be different from the way you tell your wife or the way you tell your children. So you adapt the story to your audience. Very, very important aspect to remember, right? While you're using this to influence or try and get a situation. Not all stories have a happily ever after. Things may not always go as per your plans. So think of the expectation. If the conflict is big, if the conflict is serious, if there is something gone wrong drastically, you can't walk in expecting a happy ending. So be prepared to be able to move quickly in those scenarios from so what to what next, to next what, right? So that you can focus on corrective actions and going forward and looking ahead. And finally, use these stories as a way to build relationships. Colonel Harsha mentioned it earlier during the discussion. What stories allow you to do? One significant alternate to all other forms of communication is storytelling allows you to build a long-term relationship with your stakeholders, right? It may not solve your immediate problem, but over a period of time, it's a tremendous weapon to have in your arsenal of leadership qualities. And you build relationship. The way you tell your stories and the stories you tell have a significant aspect of how people perceive you. Beyond data, how are you able to connect with them emotionally? And that, in many cases, makes the difference between you being a successful leader versus a not so successful leader. I hope these takeaways were helpful. I hope this session was helpful. We did have some questions, but if anybody wants to connect with me, please do via LinkedIn or via my email. I'm happy to answer any questions or share any thoughts and have discussions, or just chat about stories and have a good discussion in the conversation. Shanila, over to you.
Kaushik, just a quick one. Just to give credit where it is due, I didn't ask that question. It was, I think, Sim Sujit who asked the question.
Thanks, Sudhir.
All right. So thank you so much, Kaushik, for giving your time, sharing your stories, sharing the storytelling session with us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us from Pakistan, India, across the border. I think today people have joined us from Sri Lanka, from Switzerland, from Saudi Arabia, right, and from US, Miami. Thank you, Milton. So thanks, everyone, for joining us today.